Hello, collective. All right, we're here to do the reading on the Hangman. This is my third day without air conditioning and taking cold showers because that was the advice that I divined from the temperance reading personally. And so they're all connected, right? All of the major arcana are connected because we have to go through all of them. Then I did the Hermit, which is Virgo, which is the polarity to Pisces, which is the Hangman. And then I did the Tower. Right now, the Tower was all about laughing with the chaos, right? Finding levity in the chaos, because otherwise the Tower will crush you, right? It has the ability to crush you if you're in a victim mode. But if you're in a victor mode, then you can see things in a way that's working for you versus to you. So with the Hangman, and I'm not doing these in sequential order, right? Because that's not how lessons come to us. They just kind of come to us however we need them to come to us based on our planetary alignment, our chart, the energies around us, our life experience, right? Our primary caregivers really influence that as well, and our family lineage, because we have to break that cycle, their cycle, that they were not able to break for whatever reason. So the Hanged Man is Pisces, Neptune as the planet that rules Pisces, which was Neptune was pulled by a carriage of seahorses, right? Right, so there's this, and Pisces is the two fish, right? So if you think about fish, I actually keep two fish. And one was a feeder fish, right? This is before I aligned with veganism, because I would not purchase animals from a pet store ever again. But at that time, I felt like I was rescuing these fish. But I was inevitably opening space for something else to take their place, someone else to take their place. So there, I have a koi fish, and then a butterfly koi fish, and a feeder fish. And the feeder fish has really been thriving, right? And so, but they are, or if you've ever just kind of been around fish, maybe you've been fishing, right? Or hopefully you just fed the fish, then you know that there's kind of an untrusting quality to that, right? It takes a lot to earn the trust of a fish, because they are kind of skittish and they're influenced by the current, right? So there's also stuff going on underneath the surface that we don't really know, that a fish is feeling out for, right? They're avoiding prey. So when it comes to a divine union or attracting what you want in your life, you can't control a fish. I mean, you can put them in a bowl, and that's a sense of control, right? But if we're talking about wild fish, because that's where they should be, right? There's my vegan plug for the reading. Then you know that they are, it takes a lot to get them to come to you, right? So if you are the feminine, because the masculine pursues the feminine, so if you're the divine feminine, you're waiting for your divine masculine to come in. You might be in this hangman position, this point in your life where you're just waiting, right? This individual is, they've got this clock at their foot, right? It's like the closer you get to God, the closer the devil gets to you. And it's like, I always say, the devil's like nipping at your heels, right? Like a rabid animal. That's what time feels like right now. So the challenge here for the divine feminine might be that you feel like time is running out. That song Muse. The ship is taking me far away from my memories, right? So you might just be like worried that you're going to get too old, right? That you're going to die before your person comes in, right? That you're not going to meet in this lifetime, right? That could be that worry. However you view lifetimes, whether you view them linear or as phases of this particular incarnation, or if you view them non-linear and spherical, then you know, like the movie Cloud Atlas, you know that you will be together, right? And sometimes, right, it's not here currently. I'll check the bottom of the deck in a minute, but there's a need for death, which is the next reading that I'm doing, because I feel like those are very primary in really getting into the major arcana and getting aligned with your divine path. Is you have to understand how to wield death and rebirth in yourself, right? Death is primary. You have to exhale completely before you can inhale, because if you inhale with residual residue I think that's just very redundant residual if you have like sediment in your lungs, right, energetic sediment, then you're not going to be able to inhale a full, complete, pure breath. So you're always going to be inhaling, and it's always going to be just kind of piling on top of that sediment. The new is going to be, so there's going to be, the surface might look okay, but we have to pay attention to, as a mutable sign, Pisces is a mutable sign. So if you're in this energy, whether you're a Pisces, you have Pisces in your chart, you're dealing with a Pisces, doesn't matter. We all have these modalities, we all have these elements, we all have these challenges, these planetary, cosmic, celestial challenges in our journey, right? Our journey in our path, our divine path, at some point. And they come at different times, same ingredients, different recipe, but you will face this energy. But the challenge of mutable signs is because mutable is air and water, right? Both are birds and fish, right? They are ruled by the currents, right? Now you can go with the flow, right? This can also make it easy for you to fall in line with the rest of the school, right? The school of fish or the flock of birds, right? You can follow in line. This can make you very impressionable, right? Or you can go against the current, right? Now, going with the flow is it's trusting the universe. It's trusting the flow of things. So you can go with the flow and not be with the fish, the other school, or the flock of birds, right? You can still, and air is masculine, water is feminine. So there's always that duality at play in mutable signs where they're sort of, should I stay, should I go, right? Because masculine energy is active and feminine energy is inactive, but it's not inactive because it's not doing anything. It's just doing things in a way that is more nurturing, grounded, earth and water, feminine elemental energy. Whereas masculine energy it's active in the sense that it's like air and fire, right? So it takes a balance between the two. We all have these feminine, masculine, same thing, same ingredients, different recipe. But when it comes to the divine union, we have to be in our own divine balance, right? So our own recipe, we have to find the recipe that works for us. And so maybe you're wanting to make a new dish or something for a family gathering. And if you're attracted to this channel because you're vegan, then yeah, you might be making a vegan dish, which is going to be different than the dish that you were served growing up, like your grandmama's dish. You might be changing it. But that's what breaking the cycle is like. It's like you're making a new recipe out of like old ingredients that have been handed down to you, handed up to you. We'll say that. Well, they were handed up to you, because we're rising above all that. All right, so with mutable signs, that's the challenge, is that they can be impressionable, but they can be very acclimating, right? They can blend into pretty much any environment really well. So that is a strength and a challenge that they face. So using that energy, using that, that quality in a way that serves you for your own growth, so that you can influence and shift your own internal energy and environment to the external environment, right? Because if you try to change the external environment before you change the internal environment, then you're manipulative, right? Immutable signs can be manipulative, right? Because they are so, if they're in victim mode or if they're in lower vibration, then they feel very affected by the external environment. So they want to change that to make things more palatable, right? And Pisces is a very romantic, idealistic sign, right? So there's something very attractive, right? People love fish art. They love having fish, right? They want to control the fish. They want to have the fish. So that could also be the struggle here, which I was kind of getting to. I'll get to whatever I'm getting to eventually, or I won't. We'll see. But with fish, you can't control a fish, right? You have to earn the trust. It takes patience. It takes that temperance of self. It takes that hangman energy of just waiting and seeing things in a different perspective, right? So sometimes seeing things from their perspective. So if you're the feminine and you're feeling aggravated, waiting on your masculine to come in, then you're sending that energy to them. You're rushing them. You're rushing them, which is going to be like, it's going to scare them away, because that's going to be pushing them away, because nobody wants to be controlled, right? Nobody wants to be told what to do, and nobody should be, right? That's not unconditional. That's very conditional love, right? And in this path, right, the cycle breakers are breaking the cycle into truly the idealistic, divine, utopian world, new world of unconditional love, right? What God really means, right? So if you were raised hyper-religious, then you know religion is a conditional form of spirituality. This path is very open, it's receptive, it's trusting, and that means it has to be unconditional. And if you were the masculine as well, like you're pursuing the feminine, you don't want to be aggressively pursuing the feminine, right? That gets into a creepy place. You don't want to be, you want to make sure that you are on a frequency that is trusting in the timing, right? You're not feeling rushed by the time, you're trusting the timing, right? Because maybe one of you has to go through a death, right? Maybe one of you is going through a death, in a literal sense. You might be like going through grief, you know, and you know, people are always, you know, screwing at the funerals in the movies, but there is something about sexual energy, which is our greatest form of creative energy. Like our source of sexual energy and creative energy comes from the same place, right? Because that's how we create a baby biologically. So our terrestrial bodies are programmed to tap into that sexual energy for creation, for the ultimate creation of and propagation of the species. So as an organism, that's how we are designed. As divine beings, we can create in many ways, right? It doesn't have to be a child, but it can be sort of the sun energy is like a child. It can be something that takes us to a place where we are the most innocent, the most childlike, and we are pure, right? A child is so pure. So when you're creating something pure, it has to be unconditional, right? Kids come into this world and then it's like they're just met with all this conditional love, so that purity gets washed away pretty quickly. Um, so something with 88 just popped into my head. Maybe that's because I was thinking about the heat, and it was 88 degrees last time I looked at the clock. I almost said the clock, the thermostat. And temperance is about that internal thermostat, right? So this is about regulating yourself and tempering your passions, because you want, if somebody's going through grief, right, everybody processes differently, and so they have to, you want them to be in a place, you don't want them to be coming into a place with you where it's like a reaction or a rebound, right? So if one of you is getting out of a relationship, there needs to be a grace period. And a grace period is truly that. It takes grace. The individual has to earn grace for themselves, right? Because grace, or not earn. They have to give grace to themselves, right? Because earned is a condition, right? That's a tit for tat. Whereas grace is unconditional, right? So they have to get to a place where, now it feels like that on this path, right? It feels like we have to earn grace, right? Like we have to go through all these trials and tribulations, and it's like, it's a struggle for us to get to a place of peace, because for children of chaos, peace is the greatest threat to our reality, right? Now it feels like an antagonist, but it's the protagonist. But because we've never experienced peace, true peace, and quiet, we've only been in the loud, the explosive, the chaotic. We've only been in the war. It's like peace is the greatest threat, right? It feels so uncomfortable to us, right? And that's what temperance is creating comfort in the discomfort, right? So, and Virgo is about comforting that self, comforting the self, the little self, right? The little me, and acknowledging that you were once a victim. And then the Tower is about allowing yourself to trust the destruction of the old self to create a new self. So they may be struggling with that, right? And if you are a Pisces, you're likely dealing with a Virgo in some sense, right? Somebody who's going through Virgo energy at the very least, because your polarities, and I have never met a Virgo or a Pisces that wasn't dealing with the other, or having dealt with the other. That's just, we deal with our polar signs for a reason. That's why they're there, is to really challenge our energy. And I'm not saying that your divine counterpart is your polarity, but it could be. But it is going to be that it's going to feel like they are your other half in that sense, right? And that goes into Pisces energy, that very idealistic way of thinking, that romantic way of thinking, and that's kind of Aquarius and Aries, the Fool energy, right? People might think that you are just a fool for being in this position, right? For hanging upside down, because you're looking at things in a different way, right? You're going against the current, right? You might be going against the current, or you're going with the flow. Either way, you're not in the school of fish. You're not with the flock of birds. You've branched off, and that is like 8 of Wands energy, right? It's like the 8 is the number of strength. It's the number of infinity. It's the symbol for infinity. It's the number of, and there's that 88. So you could be a Leo, right? Something with Lionsgate, right? You guys might come together at Lionsgate, but Lionsgate is all about manifesting a new reality, right? Really getting into ending everything, and it's like stepping over the threshold. Okay, the threshold, and see, this kind of reminds me of I have one somewhere, the pull-up bars that you put in the doorway, right? So like the inversion, like doing inversions, and when you are doing inversions, a lot of times you will feel like not only are you literally looking at things in a different perspective, but because all that blood is going to your brain, it's like it inspires your brain in a different way. It can also, because it sort of can make you just about to pass out, right? Or pass out completely, depending on how long you're inverted. But it's also changing the flow of your circulation, right? So it's sort of filling your mind, right? Filling your mind with a different flow, right? And so you're going with your own flow, you're going with a different flow, and it's like things are firing. Your brain is firing in different ways. And so people might think, you're crazy, the world's never going to be utopian, nothing's ever going to be perfect, like, you know, and really negating the fact that you broke away. You probably broke away from family members, right? And you're kind of on your own. If not, that's always the advice. Like if you have a toxic family unit, and that's that impressionable, flocking, like following in line, mutable quality, needing to get out of that. That's the death. That's leaving that behind, stepping over that threshold into a new thing. And that takes strength, right? That also takes following your heart, not the heart of others. That's shifting your circulation. And just before you pass out, right, you get into a place of seeing things, because it's like you start to black out, you start to lose sight in the two eyes, and you start to bring sight into the third eye, this one. 2 + 1 is, so 3. So something about math. Oh, I did have a dream last night about taking a test. It wasn't a math test, but I was taking a test, and you know how in a dream state, numbers and even if you look at the clock in your dreams, right? So the third eye is all about the dreams, tapping into that feminine 5D energy, right? Tapping into the intuition. I mean, that's also the chakra that is connected with Pisces. So this is tapping into the third eye, where like almost like a dream state, like just before you pass out, right? You can shift your reality just before you go to sleep, right? So maybe practicing, I'm just holding these up, practicing lucid dreaming and astral projection. There are practical ways that you can do that, right? You can start a dream journal, and you can also meditate just before you go to sleep, right? So you can hone your energy, maybe listening to like some third eye frequency. If you have singing bowls or sound bowls, you can listen to just third eye, and really tune in to your third eye, into your intuition, in a way that says, okay, maybe if you're really struggling to continue seeing your divine counterpart in this utopian reality that you've dreamt about. Maybe you dreamt about it as a kid. Maybe you were able to astrally project or lucid dream. You had really active dreams. Maybe you were a sleepwalker. Maybe there was maybe you just hung upside down a lot, and you were always in sort of like a dream state, right? Like a space cadet-y kid, and maybe growing up you had that sort of pushback from your parents, right? Where you were really tapped into your third eye, you were really aligned with that because you were pure, and then everything got muddied up. You were in the chaos, and that got screwed up, and now you are struggling with returning to self. That's what the divine path is. It's a return to self. It's a return to the inner child. It's a return, and that's the truest form of self, is the child, like the pure child that we were born into this world, and the unconditionally pure creation that we were, closest to the celestial form before we incarnated in this terrestrial form. So this is you returning to that. That's what the hangman is. It's you looking at things in a new way, but it can also be looking at things in an old way, depending on how you're looking at it, right? So, and depending on how you view time. So this is like very Benjamin Button-y, which I think he's a Sagittarius. Brad Pitt is a Sagittarius. So that's that temperance, right? So it takes temperance, it takes waiting, and there is also I'm reading this book called Brain Respiration, and it's about breathing into the brain, right? Breathing into the brain and visualizing the parts of the brain, anatomically speaking, that you are breathing into. And so that really resonates with me and with my the way that I would teach breathing classes and yoga. Is that breath work is to inspire parts of the brain. So visualizing the parts of your body, congestion here, breathing into those parts of your body that feel stuck. And with the heart space, that's kind of a warning when you're doing inversions. Forgive me, guys, I'm getting sort of that can also happen when you're doing inversions, right? So everything can get sort of cloudy. The clouds are moving in now, but everything can get sort of cloudy, and that can be unnerving, and that can make it hard to think. Just like when you're in a dream state, you can't really think that well. You can see very clearly if you're dreaming here, but if you're trying to look through here in your dreams, if you're trying to take a test, if you're trying to tell time, if you're trying to read numbers, sometimes if you try to scream, if you try to run, right? When you try to do things in a dream state, if you're trying to do them in a way that is mechanical or physical, terrestrial, it can be very challenging. So what you're doing is you're moving into a space, in this energy, you're moving into a space where you're doing things in an ethereal way, right? In a celestial way, in this third eye, you're doing things in a way that is magnificent, I guess. But you can visualize the parts if you're struggling with the physical body. And maybe this will be the practical reel that I do on Instagram, is about breathing into the body, seeing colors for the body, and inflating them like balloons, right? If you have joint pain, breathing into the joints, right? So using that inspiration, using that new, using the circulation to kind of move and open up those parts of the body. Now, when you start opening old parts of the body that have been trapped, right? They've been blocked, they've been congested, congestified, that's not a word, by the people around you growing up, by the family members, friends, society as a whole, right? Just that, like the man trying to get you down kind of thing. It's like if you feel this pressure, this constraint, this condition, this congestion upon you, then you're able to breathe into those places and push circulation into those places to move and open that stuff in the physical body. That will open the doors for blood flow and for breath and for oxygen into the entire body, right? If you start igniting I was gonna say the fireplace, but if you start creating through inspiration, through the solar plexus and the, you may be dealing with a Leo, or you may be a Leo, again, getting that Leo energy, heart space energy, the heart and the solar plexus, right? Really breathing into that space and getting that circulation moving. There's also a concern with the heart space, right? I don't want to linger on that too long, but when you do inversions, that is one of the things. If you are pregnant, if you have hypertension, any kind of heart disease, you want to limit the amount of time that you're inverting. So if you're physically inverting and you have any kind of heart space things, if you used to be very open-hearted and you've closed that off because of what people told you, then you may be struggling with circulation. You may have some kind of heart disease. Second vegan plug, also eliminating animal products, and if you are vegan on a highly processed diet, eliminating those things, eliminating high fats, right? Things that are messing with the heart space, right? Also drinking water, hydrating, cleansing the heart space. So in the physical world, right, because we have to focus on the ego as well. Like, we can't forget the ego. The ego is indicative of what's going on in our spiritual body, or what's blocking our spiritual body, right? Because the spiritual body is pure, and then it wants less, right? It wants nothing, really. It wants for nothing, because it's neutral, it's unconditional. So it doesn't have like wants or desires, right? Like the ego. Then the ego, the physical body, it wants more, right? We always want to fill it with more, so there's overindulgence, right? Pisces can also be very susceptible to addictions and compulsions and instant gratification, right? Because the world that dreamers like Pisces, idealistic, romantic individuals envision, right? The ones that they once envisioned as young children, when that gets beat down so much that you're only looking through these eyes, this world can be very discouraging to the point where it's like, well, I guess I'll just take a hit of this or a bottle of that, or I'll just sleep with lower vibrational people. I'll just, tap into that. Again, with the sexual energy, sacral chakra, right? Being able to open that up, that could be really blocked or overactive. And if there's anything in the circulation that is blocked, right? Your energetic points, your chakras, if they are blocked, if anything in the body is blocked, when you start to bring circulation back into it, right? When you start to breathe into your fingertips, when you start to breathe from the ground to the crown, you will really open some shit up, and it can be very overwhelming, and it can be, you might feel very emotional, right? Sobriety can make you very emotional, can make you angry, right? You'll tap into places that were hurt, that you blocked off before, doors that you closed before. This door here, yeah, I'm doing home renovation stuff and remodeling, whatever. So there's chaos behind me. But when you clear that visual clutter in your immediate external environment, if you're cleaning your house up as well, right? If you're minimizing, purging, clearing that space can feel very unnerving because you want to put more there. The ego wants to put more there. It wants to fill that shelf, that empty shelf. It wants to buy new, have new, right? So if you're indulging in lower vibrational things, you know if you are or you're not, then that's that temperance, coming into that temperance energy, coming back into, so that you can remember the Lion King, that Leo energy again. Remember who you are, right? Remember who you are. Remember this dreamer. Remember this foolish kid, right? And if you can only invert physically for a moment, and if you can only invert energetically for a moment, because it becomes very overwhelming, you get this flood of blood flow and breath flow and this inspiration, right? And you've cleared out this sediment. You've cleared out that sediment in your lungs, and you've really exhaled, and you've gone through the death, right, of ending something, a relationship, family connections, right? You've cut these ties, you've cut these cords to the past version of you, and you're about to step over the threshold into in that like doorway bar, right? You're about to step over the threshold. This is you hanging. So you're on one side of the door, then you get up on this inversion bar in the doorway, and then when you dismount, it's like, she landed it. Perfect landing, right? 10 out of 10. 10 is the number of endings. When you come in to this new room, over the threshold, that might also be a physical practice that I do, because when we see it, it helps us believe it. Right now, I feel like you're struggling with believing something because you're not seeing it. So sometimes when we step over a visual threshold, it's very helpful to the body. It signals to the ego, the body, that wants more. It wants to see it so that we can believe it. So sometimes creating a visual stimuli helps to open the mind, right? It allows us to open that channel of the mind, because the mind is the mediator between source, between the spiritual body and the physical body, right? So it's like our mind, if our mind is muddled, if our mind is foggy, if our mind is clouded and cluttered, and it's under all this stress, if we have a way of thinking that is very negative and not conducive to our path. I keep saying journey. Maybe you're listening to Journey, or maybe you're just like going on a journey. Physically, maybe you're going to be like moving and journeying somewhere. And so when you change your external environment, sometimes it can help. Like, you can't manipulate the others around you, but you can change your external environment, right? You can rearrange your furniture, you can move your house, just like Up, in the movie Up. You can just take it somewhere else, just get a lot of balloons, compostable balloons if you can find them. Oh, I don't know why I'm getting so much like vegan and environmentalism ethical standards here in this reading. But let's get back to the Hangman. Okay, so here with this Hangman, the sandwich that was around this Hangman is the Page of Cups, right? They're like, they're really nurturing that fish, right? Now, if you are a Pisces, or if you're in this energy and you relate to the Piscean energy, right? You relate to this Hangman energy. Sorry about that. That's obnoxious. Then you may be needing to trust yourself again, right? Trust your own vision, trust your own thoughts, and the way that you can do that is by proving to yourself, right? Like with the Hermit, we talked about doing a to-do list, right? Give yourself easy wins so that you can have some grace. Because if you've made mistakes, if you're a recovered addict, if you're dealing with any of that, you might be like, I can't trust myself. I can't trust myself to pick a partner because I've picked such shitty ones in the past. This is a new you. You've done so much work. I mean, you're not at this point, you're not listening to this message. You haven't made it 36:55 on the clock there. If you haven't done some shadow work, if you haven't done some cord cutting, if you haven't done this work, then none of this is going to resonate up to this point, and you've probably canceled out. So if you've made it this far, you've done the work. You can trust yourself again. Just keep tapping into, just go through the lessons and keep tapping into what you know to be true, right? True for you. Now with Temperance, you challenge yourself. With the Hermit, you comfort yourself, right? So it's that balance of the ego, the intuition, it's the balance of the divine masculine and feminine, and you come into a place where you trust yourself, you trust your vision for the future, you trust and believe without seeing it. You believe because you can see it here. When you tap into the third eye, you can really see everything that you envision. You can see your divine counterpart. You can, and maybe not physically, not maybe their traits, like in a dream where you see somebody and you know it's them by their energy. You're like, oh, I knew it was my mom, or I knew it was my best friend, or whatever, but it didn't look like them. Or maybe you dream of someone without a face, right? But you just know it's them. Like this is a feeling, right? And that's the heart space. That's the childish. You just go with what you feel versus what you see. Now, practically, if you want to see it, you can always, create a vision board. You can put an actual line in the sand, right? You can make a line from the old self, and you can even put like photos and things. And I'll make. I think that's what the reel is probably going to be about. But you can put things behind you from your old life, if like physical, tangible things, and then maybe your vision board ahead of you, right? So you can see it, and then you step over that threshold, and you help your two eyes sync up with your third eye, right? So that you can move forward, and that might be a journey in itself, right? That might be the longest journey, is taking that step over that threshold that you've created and saying goodbye to everything else, right? And then you want to burn all that shit. Bury and burn it and get it out. I like to burn stuff, so. But the Five of Cups this people that you grew up around that were just in society in general, right? It's just that, it's the man. I get like surfer vibes from you, like maybe you're, maybe that's kind of like how you talk. But anyway, but And it's like a Keanu Reeves, which is a Virgo, which is your polarity. So yeah, getting into a place where you have like grace and nothing really phases you, right? You're not like, that's listening to yourself. So you're blocking out the ears, and this person's yelling away, and they're normally this would have affected you, right? This affected you as a child when you were a victim of your circumstance, but now that you're tapping back in, you've made that return to self. When you're tapping into that child there, after you have all the experience and the work and the lessons, and you've gone through all the shit, and you've impressed yourself, and you've given yourself grace, and you've been like, I'm actually not a victim, I'm a victor, then you plug the ears and you go, I'm not listening to your bullshit. Because it's bullshit. Okay, so over here, we have the Four of Pentacles. Yeah, this is holding your own, right? This is holding what you have, holding your own. See, they're guarding their this could be finances, right? You could be saving, you could be budgeting, maybe not overspending, overindulging, right? You're getting a hold of that. And so you've come into a place where you're saving. But with this is also guarding your energy. You've worked for this, so you're guarding this shit with your life, right? You're holding your own. You ever heard that, like, oh, she can hold her own, like in a fight, right? So you could be under attack. You could be in the war between light and dark, between good and evil, right? There's that, there is that, like, you're in that in between. You're between the old room and the new room, right? The new space. Because, yeah, with the Hermit Virgo reading, there was something between the room and the space. Like, a room is very boxed in, a room is very constricting. There's that movie Room. Is it Brie Larson? Where her and her son are, like, hostage. They're not hostages, because they've been kidnapped, and she was living in this space, and she had a child in this space, so the only thing this child has known was this room, these four walls. So he thought the world, they referred to the room as the world. He'd never seen a TV, he'd never experienced anything outside of that, right? It's a beautiful film. But anyway, it's like you're moving into a space. You're coming out of that room, that box, right? You were put in a box. You were put into an identifier. Maybe you were called a space cadet or a nerd or a weirdo or a hippy dippy. Or you were just antagonized by the people who you trusted the most. So that made you break your trust within. You weren't able to trust yourself because you were like, all these people around me, these people that I should love unconditionally and should love me unconditionally, and I should be able to trust them and rely on them to take care of me, didn't do so. So you've come into this place where it's like you're not, this can be sort of a very guarded energy moving forward, so that might be the challenge, right? With the Four of Pentacles, you can be more like a hoarder, right? But I feel like you're coming out of that hoarder where you're just, 4 is a balanced number, right? It's the 4 elements, right? Where when you balance those 4 elements and you guard them, then you are able to, like, you keep, because that guarded energy can be like balancing it, right? Because the best way to protect what you have, like if you protect a child, the best way to protect a child is with a maternal and a paternal influence, a divine masculine, divine feminine, right? Someone to protect and someone to nurture, right? That's that masculine and feminine energy, is to protect and lead, and then the feminine shows you how to nurture and follow your heart, right? So you could have had a Leo parent as well, and so maybe that, or you have a Leo moon sign, but there's something with Leo and being able to follow, regardless, the divine God for primitive man was the sun, right? That's the celestial body that everything in this solar system, I keep getting reverberates, but orbits around, right? Everything is centered around the sun. And we have the 3 above and the 3 below chakras, with the heart chakra in the center. Our sun, our heart, is And maybe you are a son, maybe you're having a son, right? Like, but there is, to be a child of God is to be a child, your inner child, tap into the inner child of your God space, which is your heart. That's the truth. That's where your truth is. And it means that the three above and the three below are balanced. They're open. They're receptive, right? Because if you have a block in the heart chakra, the three above and the three below are going to be fucked up. If you have any blocks in any of your chakras, everything below and above it is going to be starving for that flow, starving for that God energy, and then everything below is going to be congested, right? Everything it's going to be blocked, it's going to be overflowing, right? And what happens when you're congested for so long and you don't open that space up, something busts, right? That's a tower moment. Something, if you don't do the work, the universe will do the work for you, and that's the tower. It will come in and change it. So anyway, this is about that balancing the four elements, so that the fifth element, right, which is the source, right, can open up, right? It's consciousness. It's so that you can open up, and this is how you stay balanced with the three here, right? Your Holy Trinity is body, mind, spirit, making sure that you're tapping into the ego, listening to the ego so that you can comfort it, because the ego needs to be comforted like a child. A child is just all me. It can be very egoic, egocentric, right? So you have to tap into that. You want to comfort that child, and you want that child to be nurtured and protected at the same time. You want to show them how to follow and how to lead, right? Because if you only show them how to lead, if you put them in this hyper masculine energy and they're only going, they're in this very fiery energy, this cardinal energy, they're gonna be going so fast, they're not gonna be able to stop and smell the roses. They're not gonna be able to pause and reflect. They're not gonna be able to nurture themselves and comfort their own ego. So their ego is gonna get out of control, right? So when you comfort the ego, when the ego feels safe, then you actually open yourself up to receiving the abundance of the universe. So I feel like this is a very balanced place. I'm getting balanced energy off of this, not hoarder or constricted energy. But if you are, you know yourself, if you feel like there's congestion, that is the challenge here, is knowing when to open up and receive that fifth dimension, that consciousness, that fifth element. That's a good movie too. That Lilu, you're ready for your Lilu. And then the multipass. That's what it is. It's like your multipass. Maybe you're traveling to a different country. Maybe your divine counterpart is in a different country. They could be in a different state, or like over a state line, right? And that threshold, going over a state line. There's something about you crossing a threshold to get to this person. Now, if you're the feminine, your person's coming to you. If you're the masculine, they're going to be crossing that threshold to come to you. Coming to get you. Wayne's World, Foxy. Foxy lady, coming to get you. I remember watching that as a kid and thinking that was so perverse when he did the thrust with his sweater sleeve. And then everybody did that, everyone in school was trying to do that, So, yeah, if you've been celibate for a while, if you've been really preserving this energy, you've been single for a while, you've been celibate for a while, you've come out of that lower vibration of indulging in casual relationships, I mean, you could be hungry like the wolf, right? Which is the Native American zodiac for Pisces, is the wolf. So you could be hungry like the wolf right now. Just rest assured that the waiting is going to be worth your time. It's going to be worth the wait. However long you've been waiting, it's going to be worth it, right? To be with your divine counterpart. All right, because it's going to be everything that you saw initially, everything that you felt initially that made you feel safe, right? So meditating on how your person feels, right? Tapping into those five senses, right? Fives, Tapping into the fives so that you can balance it. That's meditation. Four of Swords. I'm jumping around a lot, but tapping into those five senses and the ego is how you comfort the ego, right? Is you listen to how your five senses are being affected by your external environment so that you can make changes, right? Because you can change the external environment. You can't control anybody else, but you can control your home, right? You can control whether you stay at a job. You can control what smells are affecting you, what things are affecting your vision, your sight, right? Visual clutter. You can clean that up. So as much as you can change, right? God, give me the strength to change the things that I can change, right? Except the things I can't. And the wisdom to know the difference, right? That's the body, mind, and spirit. Spiritual body is unconditional. That's accepting the things that you can't change. And then the ego is changing the things that you can, right? The strength to change the things, the strength, right? Is that the strength to change the things that you can change? Is that how that saying goes? And that's strength. That's the 8. That's infinity. That's the number of self changing the cycle, right? Breaking this infinite cycle, breaking out of the school. It takes that strength. That's Leo energy, the heart space. I feel like Jim Carrey. Except I didn't take the big inhale beforehand, so I'm just really gassed out on everything that just came out. But there's something in there. 3 of almost said Pentacles, 3 of Cups. This is really getting into the heart space, the emotions. This is celebrating, right? This is, I feel. And the head and the heart need to be aligned, right? Because if you just go off of what you feel and you're operating from a place that is fractured in any way from previous experiences from your life, then you're going to attract things that are broken and fractured, right? You're going to attract things that are lower vibrational because it's easier. It's too easy for the ego, right? Temperance is about strengthening the ego, and the Hermit is about comforting the ego, right? So there's that balance of you want to comfort it, but you also want to show its strength. You also want to temper it. You also want to make sure that you're not just, people will be like, oh, I'm following my heart, and then they're going with some, loser, just because it feels good in the moment, right? So watching that as well. But this, when you use the wisdom from everything that you've learned, then you don't have to listen to the voice in your head that maybe is like, you're not good enough, you're not going to get anything better, so just go with this, you don't deserve anything more, like this is as good as it gets, or for you, or whatever that voice is saying, that's trying to keep you in a low vibration and can't keep you in this lack mentality of the 5 of Cups. You're looking at the 2 of Cups, which is a balance, which is a choice, which is a divine union. 2 of Cups is like 2 people clinking their glasses together and saying, all right, let's do this. And this is all about the head is air, right? It's masculine energy. The heart is feminine. It's water, right? So you're balancing that masculine and feminine. You're balancing the intuition and the ego, right? And the intuition is of the mind, right? So you can clear that space, right? Because the mind is the doorway between the spiritual body and the physical body. But you can also disrupt it, right? Just like if something is blocked, right? And it starts to overflow, right? Then you start to get with like mental disorders, right? Disrupted thoughts, overthinking, anxiety, depression, right? Like your hormones will become imbalanced because there's going to be this positive feedback loop. And positive is not positive, physiologically speaking. Look it up. It's not good. It's like it's an overabundance. It's a repetitive cycle. It's breaking that cycle in the physical body so that your mind can be clear, and that way you can balance. You can use your intuition, right? Because if you're all muddled up, then you can't trust your intuition, right? That I feel like that's the place you've come out of, or you're coming out of, and this is kind of just Sometimes we ebb and flow. We go back into that place of, oh, last time I followed my heart, I got it broken, right? But now it's knowing that you've balanced the two, right? It's having that assurance that you've balanced the head, you balance the heart, and you're coming from a place that is, your mind will lead you properly this time. You can listen to your intuition this time. All right. I feel like this is your Holy Trinity here. This is you just celebrating with yourself, right? Finding harmony. This is harmony within the self, which attracts your divine counterpart, right? Because divine is not this twin flame journey. It's not this broken trauma bond of like runner, chaser, and that's another thing with Pisces is because they're so idealistic, a challenge for them is that they can fall for potential because they can see the good in things. They can see the potential in things. So if you're someone who can see the potential in things and you've fallen for potential before, using your head is remembering to hold yourself accountable for the boundaries and the standards that you set yourself, right? So you are, if you're like dating again, right? You know the red flags. You know what doesn't work for your ego. You know what doesn't comfort your body or your mind, because you've done that work. And so you can look at it and go, this isn't for me, right? They feel good to my ego, right? Maybe they're giving me a lot of attention. Maybe they're really hot, whatever. But they don't make me, here, it's all good. But here, they don't feel like my person. I don't feel like, because, and the way that you know that is because you know yourself. So if you don't feel like yourself, that's the way that you know that you're with your divine counterpart, right? That things are, so if you're attracting a divine counterpart, you have to feel like yourself, 100%. You have to celebrate with yourself, you have to love yourself, you have to give yourself grace, you have to be able to balance all of your things. You have to wait for the bread to rise, your recipe, right? Maybe one of you is a chef or a baker. Well, holy shit, look at that. There's the Fool, taking the leap of faith, and there's the Two of Cups. Here we go, clinking the glasses together. Your divine counterpart is like, they're right around the corner, right? They're right over that threshold. So step on over, and there they are. Trust. That's the Fool, the trust fall. This person will catch you, right? Because you've caught yourself. The Nine of Cups. That's the self. You've been filling your own cup, that Page of Cups energy. You've been playing with that little untrusting, broken little skittish fish within, and now you can trust yourself because you could be dealing with a fire sign. There's that Queen of Wands. You could be dealing with a Leo. Any fire sign, the Fool is Aries. But yeah, we have the Knight of Wands. You could be waiting for a fire sign to come in if you're the Divine Feminine. And the Seven of Pentacles. That's seeing the seeds that you planted. The seeds that you planted when you were a child. You're seeing them grow. I don't know why I'm doing that. I used to do that with my Pisces brother. He used to squish my cheeks and then I would like make funny noises, you know, like so yeah, that's the Pisces energy is strong here. And if you've dealt with a Pisces before, then you might be reluctant to dive into that energy, but look at them in a new way, okay? Look at that Pisces energy. Look at that mutable hangman energy as not being something like, ugh, I'm waiting here, or like being impatient or splashing the water because the fish didn't come up. Like, fuck you. Just keep dropping the pebbles, and eventually they'll come to the surface. All right, I think that's it. I will see you guys over on Instagram. If not, I wish you well.